crisis has been headline news for much of 2023. That's why we've asked teachers how it has impacted schools and their approach to spending, resulting in our cost of living special report. We're here to tell you, don't worry, keep going. In these 3 Insight specials, Lance and I discuss the results of the survey and what they mean for your business.
In part 2, we look at reductions and restrictions, where schools have reduced spending and any restrictions they've put into place to control budgets. So we asked educators about where they're reducing their spending.
Yes, and in video 1, we looked at the impact and priorities and saw that nearly half of respondents said that budgets have been affected, so it stands to reason that there will be a reduction in spending. And the range between the most and least reduction was significant. We had 62.5% of reduction in resources and equipment, but only 4.7% in insurance. I mean, that 4.7% is completely understandable because these legal obligations do come first. Other areas that hit: furniture 55.2% and supply teachers 51.7%. So staffing makes up most of the top 6 though. So we've got learning support 44.3% and staff recruitment 42.3%. See reductions in spending. The latter with schools having to be more creative with recruitment, with the often high cost of advertising jobs, and as mentioned in video 1, numerous vacancies. There are a couple of positives. SEND provision 17.3% and safeguarding 4.8% are less likely to see reductions. Again, with safeguarding, we've got legal requirements, so that's why those figures are very low. There is a caveat with SEND demand being substantially higher since the pandemic, so it's still an area of great challenge and difficulty for schools and families. If this cost of living crisis were to continue into 2024, we hope it doesn't, but if it does, what are the next round of services that might be affected?
Yeah, this is an interesting question to ask, because currently in 2023, inflation has started to drop, but interest rates are still going up. But should we see inflation to continue to drop, pressure on budgets will be a little bit lessened, and it's worth looking ahead to see what they think might be coming up next. Now, respondents, when it came to answering this, were generally a bit more circumspect, selecting around 20% fewer options in the multiple choice than for question 3. Now, teaching resources and equipment still top though, but a much lower percentage. So we're talking about 32.9% versus 62.4% previously. So this is a clear message from teachers. We've seen enough restrictions here. We don't want to squeeze this any further. Let's protect what we've got. Staff recruitment and CPD. They also round off the top 3. Again, much lower, but it indicates that teachers do not envisage a resolution to recruitment challenges that are currently taking place anytime soon. So they're not feeling too positive about that. But CPD can show schools care for their staff. So greater investment in this area will potentially see greater staff retention in the future. It's one of the factors, at least, that contributes to that. Now, furniture was particularly high for 2023, but there's a marked improvement when compared to predicted spending for reductions for 2024. It's down from 55.2% to just 18.6%. So maybe furniture is seen as a short-term solution for spending restrictions, but ongoing, teachers are aware they're going to need things in their classroom. So we don't expect that to continue for too long. Now, what else did response tell us about the sorts of procurement measures they're taking to sort of cope with these restrictions in schools?
Well, as I say, we've looked at reductions. Now we're looking at the measures that schools have brought in to keep these budgets under control. The first thing to share here is that budget freezes were quite low on the list. So 38.3% chose this, but that means that nearly 62% retained some flexibility in their budgets. And that's a significant number of schools. So that's really positive news that you still have work to do and sales to be made. So so 62% there still have flexibility in their budgets. Over 2/3, 67.3%, said all purchases must be approved by the finance team. So this extra scrutiny is not surprising. It's another chance for me to say that ongoing message of keep going. If you can clearly demonstrate the short or long-term cost savings that your product or service can provide, you'll make it easier for teachers to get approval from the finance teams. So that's really worth remembering. 52.4% said multiple quotes are required. Now, as a head of music, I remember even several years ago that multiple quotes, certainly if it's a large purchase, you need to get multiple quotes. So this isn't particularly new, but do keep an eye on your competition so that you know where you sit. If your prices are slightly higher, that's fine, but you need to clearly communicate what other benefits that you can provide and show the higher quality that you're offering for that extra expense. 44.2% have cost ceilings. Don't forget free resources, discounts, payment plans, bonus months on subscriptions. These will all be well received by schools. We did have a few other responses in our question here. So budget reductions came up by a few, particularly department related. Staffing was mentioned several times in relation to teaching time. Staff reductions, restructuring, often where teachers have to teach a subject that's not their specialism, and voluntary redundancies. But it's worth reiterating that budget flexibility remains according to over 60% of our respondents. The cost of living crisis has cast a cloud over decision makers' ability to spend in the way they would hope. But as we said at the beginning, we're here to tell you, don't worry, keep going. And by watching this video, you now know how to tailor your communications around reductions and restrictions. In part 3, we move on to protection and support, areas of spending that are remaining protected and ways that you, the education businesses, can help support schools.
To get your next campaign up and running, or simply to discuss how we can help you to extend your reach to schools, get in touch now for a free strategy call with one of our team of Selling to Schools experts.